For the impact section, and we're going to start with someone who just flew in from South Africa, and she's going back to South Africa. She came purposely for this, so she wants to impact our own life and also share experience with other folks in this summit. I'd like you to put your hands together to welcome Dr. Esperance Luvindao. I think I got that. Doctor, thank you. Yes, welcome. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me? No, you cannot. Can you all hear me? Still not? Okay, but my mic is on. So I'm going to try and speak a little bit louder. Can we all hear me? Yes? All right, so the first rule is I don't like a quiet crowd. I don't. Because you heard I flew all the way. I'm actually from Namibia. But you heard I flew all the way from South Africa because I had to connect from South Africa. So if you guys are quiet and you're not responding and I make a joke and you don't laugh, you're going to make me feel bad. Do you guys want to make me feel bad? Okay, so let me start by telling you all a little story. In my first year of working as a medical doctor in Namibia, I was on call. So I was on duty that night. And usually what happens is when the nurse wants you to come because there's an emergency, they will call and they'll say, "Good afternoon, doctor," or "Good evening, doctor. We have a 7-year-old male, a known asthmatic. He came into the hospital, he's not breathing, these are his vitals." And then I will give instructions over the phone and say, "I'm on my way, I'm coming." But on this particular night, the nurse called. It was around 8 o'clock in the evening. The nurse called and all she said was, "Doc, ward 7, come now." And as I listened to her speak, I could hear in the background that there were women crying. And there was one particular voice that stood out and she was wailing like someone had just died. And so I didn't ask any questions. I dropped my phone. I was in bed that night and I was wearing my pajamas. And I stayed inside the hospital. So I didn't take my car. There was no time. I ran in my pajamas. I got to the ward in about a minute and a half. And when I got there, there was nobody outside. There was a group of women standing by a door. And they were all crying, but they were surrounding one particular woman. And this woman sounded familiar because it's the same voice I heard over the phone crying. And so I ran into the door and I shut the door behind me. And there was a bed. There was a 7-year-old boy lying on the bed. And the nurse was standing next to him. She was shaking. So I got onto the bed. All right, this mic is a little bit distractive. I got onto the bed and I started resuscitating. So I went 1, 2, 3, and the nurse gave oxygen. 1, 2, 3, and the nurse gave oxygen. 1, 2, 3, and the nurse gave oxygen. A couple of minutes later, there was no response, so I said, "Push adrenaline." They gave adrenaline. We continued. Now, if any of you are in the healthcare field, you know that resuscitation is not meant to be done by 1, 2 people. Because ultimately what's supposed to happen is you get so tired that you need to swap. But there was nobody there. This is a state hospital. We're in the rural area, so it's the 2 of us. So we kept going. And I remember I was drenched in sweat and I felt like my hands were about to collapse. And I looked at the clock and we had been going for 50 minutes straight. Anybody in the healthcare sector will also tell you that's not supposed to happen. Because by then you know what the fate is. I looked at the nurse, she looked at me, he was gone. So I got out from the bed, I looked at the clock and it was 8:55 that day. And I said, time of death, 8:55, and I closed this little 7-year-old boy's eyes. And I got off the bed and you could see the nurse, tears were running down, and she said, "I tried, doc." And I said, "I know you did." So I got off from the bed and the nurse was doing what she had to do, cover the child. And as I walked to the door, I walked out of the door. And as I walked through the door and shut the door behind me, that same woman that I had seen when I came in, she came to me and she said, "Doc, I know, don't tell me. I know. But I just want to ask you, why? Why me?" And at that point in time, the tears sat in my eyes. I had to remember everything they taught me in medical school. Yes, you must be empathetic, but you cannot let your emotions get the best of you. Now, I'll tell you later on why I told you that story. Fast forward, let's talk about a puzzle. How many of you have ever played with puzzles as a child? Come on, I can't be the only one. We agreed you're not going to make me feel bad. I'm on camera. Please lift your hand up and just say yes. All right, so all of you have played with puzzles. And you know when you have a puzzle, it's either a small puzzle with about 50 pieces or it's a big puzzle with about 500 pieces. Now, as a child, I hated the puzzles with the 500 pieces because I could never get it right. There was always that one piece from the puzzle and I couldn't understand where that piece belonged. Now, it is very important that as we talk about women breaking the glass ceiling and how women can rise, we understand the importance of finding your purpose. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it's the truth. Because the problem with a lot of us is we are like that one piece of puzzle that you can never quite figure out where it belongs in the whole. And that means it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how great you are. It doesn't matter how amazing you are. If you can't find how you fit in the greater scheme of things, you will never achieve sustainable development. And that is the truth. You can quote me on it. It doesn't matter how great you are. You can be the most amazing humanitarian in your country. And someone said something interesting. They said the problem with women is we don't like it when other people rise. And so before I move to the next level, let me say one thing. The biggest favor you can do yourself by being at a summit like this is understanding what we call symbiotic relationships. So in symbiotic relationships, we are parasites and we leech off of each other. And that's me. I'll tell you the one thing about me, I'm never threatened by another woman. Never, ever, ever. What I will do is when I notice, as I walked in the room, I was looking around. And it is always my job, in my mind, I taught myself from a very young age, I will always see the next woman as an inspiration. What can I gain from you? What can I leech off of you? You might see me as a threat. It's your problem. I just want to learn from you. So as I sat there, I met this woman. She was sitting right next to me. And she was so friendly. She was so amazing. She told me she's from Sierra Leone. Is that correct? And I met her and I was just wowed by her confidence. Your confidence is on point. And then I met another woman and she was speaking. I've never met her before, ever. But she was speaking. And as I heard her speak, I said to myself, that sounds like the next president to me. You see? So for me, my job is not to be intimidated. My job is to find your strength and pick it out. So you ask yourself, how does a symbiotic relationship work? You just gave them compliments. The thing now is, if I think she's going to be president, I'll ask myself, what makes me think she's going to be president? What skills does she have? And how can I leech off of her? You're not leaving without giving me your number, by the way. All right? If I think she's confident, I'm going to make sure that I learn, how is she this confident? Right? So fast forward, I know I only have 20 minutes and I know when MC starts looking, your time is up. But fast forward very, very quickly. The third thing that I wanted to talk about quickly is never let anybody's reality become yours. As a young woman, older women would always tell me and say, Esperance, you want to get married one day. Marriage is hard. Esperance, you want to have children. I want to have 7 children. Let me tell you an very interesting story. So my parents are from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I speak Lingala, I speak Swahili, I speak French. Okay? And very, very interesting. We are a very big family. My mother was the eldest of 12 children. So unlike a lot of women my age, I actually want 8 children. Now, I see people are laughing here. It's the truth. But you see, the interesting thing about that is I've met a lot of older women that will tell me, you want to have so many children? Having children is hard. I am a medical doctor, I'm a speaker, I'm a public speaking coach, I'm a humanitarian and a healthcare advocate. And people will always tell me, Esperance, you're biting off more than you can chew. I'll tell you another story. Way back when I was in high school, years ago, I was on the stage speaking about how I wanted to be the head girl of the school. And I remember as I got off the stage that day, I went to the back of the stage and there were women, older women, that stood at the back and they were speaking in a native language in Namibia, and they said, this dirty girl from Katutura can never be our head girl. That was a glass ceiling that was over my head without knowing it. Fast forward, I go to university, the University of Namibia, to study medicine. And the same thing, I was about to enter a hall to go into my exams, my fourth year exams for medical school. And my lecturer stood at the door and he asked me, he said, what are you doing here? Esperance, you are not meant to be a medical doctor. You can try. Rather go and model and do whatever it is you do. You will never be a doctor. And I stood there crying with tears running down my face. But you know one thing I realized? I realized that people will constantly form glass ceilings over your head. But it is your responsibility, number one, to identify them. Number two, to break through them. This brings me back to the reason I told you the story in the beginning. So, the day I was told I'm too dirty to be the head girl of one of the best schools in Namibia, a glass ceiling was formed. The day I was told I could never be a doctor, a glass ceiling was formed. That day that I was resuscitating that child and declared that child dead, and that mother at the door asked me, why me? That was the first day I broke that glass ceiling. Why? Because I realized my purpose. I realized who I am. I realized what I meant to do, and I realized how Esperance Luvindao fits into the greater puzzle of things. So it was at that day that I stopped just being one piece of a puzzle. I became a piece of a whole. I realized that my job is to travel around the world and speak, number one. Number two, my job is to ensure quality healthcare for all, irrespective of socioeconomic backgrounds. That's how I found how I fit into the greater scheme of things. So my question to you is, what are some of the glasses that people have laid over you? And only you know, and for some of you it's very personal. You won't want to say it, that's fine. Some of you were told is, you think you can become president? What? You think you can become governor? What? You think you can become first lady? What? Who told you that? And because of the fact that we are subconscious human beings, it goes into your subconscious and it stays there whether you like it or not. Every single one of us, if I went around this room, all of you would be able to tell me something that someone said about you at some point, even if it was a friend. And you know, the thing with women is a lot of the times we say things as a joke, but we're being honest. And so those things stick at the back. I was told in high school, I was told your English is poor. You can never amount to anything, and that was when I decided I wanted to be a public speaker and travel around the world and speak. So it brings me to my last point. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Esperance Luvindao. So I'm a medical doctor. I'm a speaker. I own a public speaking university. I'm a healthcare advocate, and I'm a humanitarian. Now, there was one time I was speaking at an event with women. And I asked them one very important question. I went around the room and said, how much do you want to earn every single month to make you happy? They looked at me and they said, what? I said, if I could tell you that you could earn anything, how much? So I'm going to ask two people just because of time. And also, I want you to say it in US dollars. US dollars is an international currency. Doesn't matter where you're from. You understand the language. All right. So I'm going to ask two people. If you had to make a certain amount of money per month that will make you happy, you know yourself. You know whether you have black tax or not. You know how many kids you have. You know how expensive your hair is. You know all those things. So I just want two people to just tell me how much money would make you happy. How much money would make you happy per month, US dollars?
That would be, let's say, $1 million per month.
Okay, she said $1 million. Good for you. I want to ask one more person per month. How much would make you happy?
$1 million.
Yo. I wasn't prepared for that. I think I was I was not prepared for that. I love it. Can we clap hands for them, please? That's what we're talking about today. But let me round up quickly. How many of you are as capable to tell me what your purpose is? Is it easy to tell me what your purpose is? Yes? It's easy? Not for all of you. I see some of you are nodding your heads. Not for all of you. Right? Not for all of you. Now, as I sum up, let me say this very, very, very important thing. One of the most important things I have ever learned in life is if you ever want to rise, you must decide where you want to rise. Now that's very important because remember at the beginning, we spoke about glass ceilings. I spoke about breaking that glass ceiling, but anybody within the science field will tell you, in order to break something, you need to apply constant pressure. The problem with a lot of women is we are everywhere. So we're trying to break, but we don't know where exactly we're meant to be. So we're trying everywhere. And the problem is you never stay in one place long enough to apply enough pressure to break the glass ceiling. Right? So the more pressure you apply, and what does that take? It means you need to know where you are supposed to be. That means you need to know your purpose. Now let me sum it up because a lot of people always say, Esperance, you talk about purpose like it's easy. Finding your purpose is not the easiest thing. I understand that. I accept it. I'm not making light of it. But my thing is, once you get on your journey to finding your purpose, what are the 3 things that you do? Point number 1, you get a mentor. People spoke about it. I'll say it in one sentence. If you as a woman continue to be intimidated by women you should be learning from, you are doomed for failure. I'll say it again. If you as a woman continue to be intimidated by women that you should be learning from, you are doomed for failure. So you find a mentor, you sit at their feet, you learn. The second and the third thing is the thing people tell you that you are good at, usually that will tell you where your purpose sort of lies. So you look at your life and you try and find that pattern. People say, Esperance, when you speak, a whole room listens. Esperance, when you speak, you're really passionate. Those are indicators. And then the last thing is things that you are generally very, very good at. Before I got any sort of training in public speaking, I was just a good speaker. I used to do poetry. I'm a poet. So to end it off, I leave you with this. It's a poem by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter lies, but still I rise.
Yes.
Do you want to see me broken? With my head bowed down and my eyes lowered and my shoulders falling down like tears. Whimpering in my cries, but still I rise. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hate, but still I rise. Thank you very much.